Good morning, it's March 12th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, Joe Biden's State of the Union is full of material to look at. On the economy, he touted how, in his opinion, Americans are better off than anyone else in the world. And I guess that's supposed to make us feel better. And he ticked off what he feels are positive items. Inflation is down from a peak of 9% to just over 3%. Of course, he does not tell us that his spending programs in the first 2 years caused that inflation, and the prices are still up 18% since he took office. He says gas prices are coming down, except on the West Coast. We're not seeing any $5 per gallon prices. But he must not have seen they're ticking upward again and will continue to do so through the summer driving season. Prices are actually up about 26 cents in the last month. In his words, he states he created 15 million new jobs. Now, the question that everyone should ask is, how many of those were jobs lost due to the pandemic and government forcing businesses to shut down? How many of those, quote, created jobs are actually ones that are returning as the pandemic eased? Well, Joe Biden lives in the White House where everything he wants is provided. He, like any other president, has no concept of how the average American lives on a day-to-day basis. Now for some real economic facts that ordinary Americans are becoming all too familiar with. Americans have an absolute mountain of credit card debt. And they have $1.29 trillion of credit card debt, and that's by the last analysis. And this is the highest since the New York Fed began tracking such debt in 1999. Under Biden's economy, getting a decent mortgage rate for a home buyer has become very difficult. When he took office, rates were somewhere around 3%, but now they're hovering just under 7% after peaking at over 8%. And that means a monthly mortgage payment has basically doubled. Biden's answer to your problem? You guessed it, more government handouts and spending. Quoting him, "But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as the mortgage rates come down to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. That's for 2 years. No differential on," end quote. Now, there's no differential on who qualifies, and just give me some cash so you can vote for me. And if you understand exactly what he's saying, it means that anyone that applies under such a program can deduct $4,800 a year for 2 years off their taxes. And if they don't owe that much in taxes, the government will send them a check for the balance because it's a tax credit. Another facet of Biden's economy is forgiving student debt. Now, I don't know of a single issue that irritates people who have either paid their loans off or never taken out a loan. It irritates them no end. I never took out a loan, and because I was able, I paid for my 4 daughters' education. Should I get a refund? In his State of the Union, Biden basically gives the Supreme Court the middle finger. Here's what he said. Quote, "When I was told I couldn't universally just change the way we dealt with student loans, I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt by nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service." End quote. Forget what the Supreme Court said. I'm going to get around them. He also issued some vague threat at the court, something no other president's ever done in any speech, let alone the State of the Union. He basically told the justice, "We're coming for you." What does that mean? Is he recommending protesters outside their homes again, threatening them and their families? And if Joe Biden really thinks the economy is booming, he should take a look at something that should scare everyone. A record number of 401k account holders took early withdrawals from their accounts last year for financial emergencies. And that's according to data from the Vanguard Group. Over 3.6% of plan participants did so last year, and that's up from 2.8% in 2022, and pre-pandemic it was just under 2%. These are supposed to be retirement funds, but people are being forced to withdraw them, and in many cases paying a penalty because they need the money to survive. Americans are dealing conflicting financial pressures. Hiring is strong, but wages have not kept up with inflation, and items like groceries, insurance, and housing are putting them in a tough spot. Now, the president's budget is now out, and when you look at it in context with the economy, you have to wonder what they're thinking. We're drowning in debt as a nation, and all Biden can think of is more taxes and more spending. He wants to raise the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. Now, he seems to have forgotten that his former boss, Barack Obama, supported cutting it to 22% because of the corporations moving offshore. Ireland, as an example, has a 12% corporate rate. Now, where would you go? In his budget, he criticized the 2017 tax bill and says it gave tax cuts only to the wealthy. Well, that claim's been debunked by even the most liberal media, who finally had to admit that the middle class really got a tax cut. He's suggesting that people pay more into Medicare by counting their investments. That would raise the Medicare tax from 3.8% to 5%. He keeps claiming that Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare, but ignores that he entered into an agreement last year with then Speaker McCarthy where those two programs were off the table and not subject to any cuts. It appears that just like his State of the Union speech, his budget proposals are more of a campaign effort for re-election than an effort to truly bring out the deficit spending. Joe Biden, in my opinion, is willing to mortgage the future of our children just to get a second term so he can be president well into his 80s. If you think he's senile now, take a look at him 4 years from now. This is To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. And tomorrow, I'm going to talk about some tax issues that he's way off base on.